And then welcome to the How to Dare masterclass. This is one of my favorite topics. How to be more courageous. I run quite a lot of different kinds of events, maybe they're to do with music or creativity or having open stages and things. And like, I don't know, I have a lot of interests and I do a lot of different things. One commonality I so often find when I look around me in my different events, but also just in my friendship groups and in the world, is like there's so much talent around. There's so much incredible talent, and every single person is so amazing at least one thing, and usually several. And so often we just hold ourselves back from really owning that and really shining and really being seen in it. And then another thing that I keep seeing in my different lines of work is it can be so hard to just be honest and say what we really think and what we really feel. We're at this amazing crossroads right now. I really feel that, where we know that the way so many of us were raised to sort of keep things in and not express and not say what we really think and what we really feel, like keep the peace, don't make a problem, be liked by everyone. We know it's not true, but that's one of the hardest things to shift. Those moments when we know that there's something that we want to say or something that we want to do, and we just get that huge, like almost freeze, or like the words can feel stuck in our throat, or we can just feel like, oh, we know we want to, but we feel somehow stuck. What do we actually do in those moments? Um, that's something I'm really passionate about, and it comes back in all of the kind of work that I do. So that's what we're here to do today, to talk about this in the How to Dare masterclass. I want to talk a little bit about who I am. I actually noticed that everybody who's signed up to live for this round um, are people that I know, but from all kinds of different places. And I think not everybody knows about all of this stuff. So um, I mean, I was always really strong academically, and I had quite a like strict upbringing, and I was a very obedient child. That I was no trouble at all. I was really a good girl. But oh, by the way, I, I think you all know my name, but just in case somebody watches this in the future, my name is Kim Gadraj, and in Sweden I say Gairai, and that's really cool because when I'm in England and I say Gadraj, nobody can spell it, and when I'm in Sweden and I say Gairai, everybody just spells it immediately. So you can call me either of those depending where you come from. Actually, when I lived in Bolivia, everyone called me Gajraj. So there's another pronunciation for you if you want it. Yeah, I definitely would class myself as a recovering good girl. And there were a lot of expectations on me and what I would do and who I would become from, especially from being a good student, actually. And so when I was 18 and I left school, I got a place at university, but I actually ended up canceling it and going to the jungle. I mean, I spent some time in Ghana. I was supposed to have a gap year. It's quite common, at least in England, to have a year traveling before you go to university. And I got totally hooked. somewhere. I went to Ghana first, and then somewhere here in Peru in the Amazon with monkeys on my shoulders and just living this totally different life. I kind of got this realization of, whoa, I don't have to do, it's actually my life, and I don't have to do any of the things that everyone seems to want me to do. I remember coming back to England at some point and just sitting my parents down and giving them this huge speech about what I want and what I don't want. And I'm lucky for that. My parents have actually always listened to me and understood me. Anyway, at some point I did end up going to Oxford University, but it was after like 3 years of traveling around and getting to know the world and getting to know myself. While I was at university, I had a fairly unconventional student life, though. This is my living room, which I shared with 50 djembes and other types of drums. I had this huge van, and I used to go around holding African percussion workshops. Spent some time in Senegal here studying under a master djembe player. So yeah, one of my main instruments is percussion. And that's when I also first started facilitating. It was with percussion and West African drumming workshops. Yeah, took a master's in international development, which took me to Bolivia, where I spent 3 years in La Paz, living among the Aymara indigenous group. And writing a book, doing different things there, getting to grips with Spanish. I think the Ghanaians and the Bolivians did a lot to help shape my personality into really feeling like I express myself in a free way, actually. I worked for a while in a Swedish company related to low carbon keto, running the Spanish division of that company, and doing a lot of public speaking, traveling around to conferences, being in video content, and like really, really being the face of a lot of things, being in front of the camera. But you know, I've always played music, and I've been writing my own songs since at least 2017 or before, when I lived in Bolivia. When I lived in Bolivia, it really got serious with my songwriting. It really felt like, okay, now I have things to say and I really want to write songs. It was really a big step for me to actually start releasing music and go on Spotify. You can check. I'm also Kim Gadraj there. You can check my music. There's a lot more coming. And I've been working with the voice, especially the voice, and voice activation since 2017. I left my corporate job at some point and started to run that as a business. And there's been other, you know, public speaking as part of that. I have a podcast now. So like I keep doing things that really scare me. Actually, really, I do. I you know, whether it's been in Bolivia daring to kind of interact with indigenous groups and make conversation and ask if I can work with them and study them, or speaking at conferences or launching a podcast. I have a podcast called The Activation Show, by the way, which I think is a very kind of like activating experience, being on stages. I think like when I ask people how they see me, one of the main things that they say is that they think I'm brave. And I feel like I'm also owning that more and more. And also that even though I teach music and singing, and then I also teach how to be more courageous and authentic and honest in how we express ourselves. That element of courage, even though I work in quite different things, that element of courage is really something that keeps on coming back and tying everything together. And so yeah, for me, there's been no clearly defined path. And I think, at least for me and a lot of people I know, that's actually something that quite sets this generation apart from the one before, that there's less of a clearly defined life path laid out for us. And I think that that's great. And it comes down to just keeping on taking the next step and the next step and the next step. And then looking back, everything seems to make sense. But it's not something that I could have planned. Yeah, so I just wanted to say about this, I have a picture of an elephant because it feels like a bit of an elephant in the room every time there's a free thing. Why is it free? Why are you doing this for free? And I like, of course, I run this as I own my business, and working with clients is what I do as my only income and the only way that I make my living. But I also I really love, and I won't go into too much of a tangent about that, but it was a big part of my master's thesis, like looking at how we can incorporate other values like generosity and connectedness into what is a capitalist system. I think the Aymara do that really well because they've sort of, they've interwoven their traditional cultural values into their economy and their capitalist system. And so I love that I can hold free things and give gifts and give things away in a way that feels really generous to me, in a way that I'm also getting people to know me and my work. And yeah, it's a kind of marketing. And so yeah, I do have stuff that you can get. And of course, if you decide to work with me in one of my programs, then we're going to go a lot deeper and you're going to work a lot more closely with me. And what I really like to say to people is, you're so welcome to all of my free things and to download any of the free things that I have around that you want. And I never want anyone to feel bad in the sense that, like, oh, I keep coming to, well, I have free stuff and I don't buy anything. I just want you to feel welcome. Like, I think that's a beautiful way to make this kind of work accessible to everyone. And I really enjoy kind of finding that dance between how can I be boundaried? How can I, value myself and my work in a way that I don't give away too much for free, but then also really legit give stuff that is going to be really helpful and really rewarding for people. If you invest your time by being here live now, hi again, or watching the replay later. And so I've designed this masterclass in a way that you can really take the stuff in here and you can really implement it in a way that is really going to help you be more courageous. And I know I'm going to talk about what I mean by that, maybe even in the next slide coming. Oh no, almost. So actually, like the way that I'm going to talk about this today is also the path that you take over 4 months in the Amplify program. It's not exactly, I don't really believe in linear paths, like here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, because they're all interrelated and they keep circling back to each other. And I'm going to show you that as we go through. But that's what I would say. I have a lot of stuff on, and you can check my website, kimgadraj.com, if you get curious about working with me after this masterclass. But the main thing that I have going on at the moment, if you want to really dive deep and have fun and like have a massive epic shift in how you show up in the world, is the Amplify program that's starting on the 2nd of September. We meet live on Mondays over 4 months. Um, so yeah, that is coming. Just let me know if you're interested in that. And now it's time to talk about what I mean by dare. Well, this is I mean, there's so many things about courage, right? The main thing we often hear about courage is like feeling afraid but doing it anyway. um and but the ways that I really work with courage are all related, of course, to fear. Like, it can be scary to be really authentic and really express who you are, um rather than trying to just be a chameleon and adapt to everybody, especially if you're good, like me and like a lot of people I know, at sort of like knowing what other people kind of want from you or expect from you. Can be so easy just to do that or say that, especially if you have a, like, you know, you've been brought up to be someone who keeps the peace, doesn't make a fuss. I think being brave is also, like, we're jumping around the board a little bit here, but it's also about being difficult when necessary. That's freaking hard sometimes, to dare to like be difficult. Um, Forging your own path. Like, really, I think this is a little bit of a balance. I think it's really beautiful to have role models and to have people who've done it before, whatever it is that you want to do. And there's also a huge thing about trusting yourself and your decisions enough to make completely your own path if that's what's needed, even if no one's ever done that before. Vulnerability is part of being brave. Actually showing when you're not feeling good, letting yourself cry, letting yourself have emotions around other people, saying, like letting yourself be weak almost, and like saying that you need something from somebody. That is brave. Being honest, saying what you really mean, having a willingness to connect with other people. Do you find sometimes I've found that I'm a little bit more responsive in connections? Like, I will more kind of connect with people who come to me, and that can mean not always going to the people that I want to connect with and starting a connection with them. um just letting those walls down and like really letting someone in, that's brave. Stepping into the spotlight when it's appropriate. Why do I say, ooh, I've lost it. Why do I say when it's appropriate? Because, well, like, one of my blocks for that was like people who take too much spotlight in a way that's really actually kind of violating of our time and attention. That can be something that can kind of turn us off from actually stepping into the spotlight when it is appropriate for us to do that, when we can actually step up and say, actually, I'm the one who should take leadership in this situation, or my song would be a really beautiful thing for people to hear right now, or I really know my shit about this and people will benefit from hearing what I have to say. Playing big rather than small. Ooh. I think I was raised to play small, like, and that was good. Be humble. Now I think it's so much better to brag and like own my talents, and in a balanced way. But nobody's going to do that for us. Actually, we're the one who's going to advocate for us. Yeah, let's move on. I want to say you can be brave and tired. You can be brave and an introvert. You can be brave and a single parent. You can be brave and a beginner. You can be brave and fail at things. You can be brave and nervous as heck. We all have these changing waves. I mean, okay, introversion and extroversion, they're not always changing waves, but I certainly feel sometimes more introverted and sometimes more extroverted. We all have these different changing waves of mood or different life phases that we go through. And we can still have, even through those waves and those different things happening, we can still have an underlying mindset and belief system that is compatible with courage. And that's what I'm going to go into now. Have three key concepts that I really want to speak into, because I think that these are things, you might already have your own tools, your own habits and practices and different things that that are going to work for you for different ones of these. You'll see more, I think, what I mean when we go there. And I have a lot, and going deeper into that is exactly what we do in Amplify. But my key concept number one is that the foundation of courage is safety. The foundation of courage is safety. It's a similar idea to feeling the fear and doing it anyway. But I really think that it's not about, being in this super, super scared thing and sort of like pushing through that, or ignoring the fear. And being brave is not about like being tough and like doing it. I mean, in a way it is, but when we can create safety for ourselves, we automatically become brave. We can actually create some kind of antidotes to that fear. So it is about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. There's a step in between that where I feel the fear, actually really feel it in a way, and have tools to let me neutralize that fear. And then I can do the thing in a way that feels grounded, calm, confident, and relaxed. We're going to get more into this, but what I just want to say at this stage to the ones who are live with us, if you get some questions coming up as I'm talking about this, feel free to write in the chat your question. I don't take anymore. I've learned my lesson, but I don't take questions anymore while I'm talking because I just get distracted. I can't remember then what I was saying before I answered the question. So if you put a question there, I might not acknowledge it until the end when we get to that point, but then I'm going to take it. So that, I think that's a really good thing. Like if you get a question, just write it in the chat and hit enter before you forget it. And we take all the questions at the end, just to say. Okay, so the foundation of courage is safety. Also, if you're watching the replay, wherever you're watching it, you can still put your question in the comment section, and I'm going to get to you with the answer. Won't be live, but I'll write you a little answer, or maybe even send you a voice note if that's going to be easier. All right. So what do I mean? The foundation of courage is safety. There are different ways that we can create that safety for ourselves so that we feel more calm, actually. Like, courage is such a easier thing if we don't feel like terrified when we're doing stuff. And one part of that is really physical. It's really physical, and it's about regulating your nervous system. You might have already your own ways that you do this. You might connect to your breath. You might do a meditation, one way that is a beautiful way, that what my friend and colleague Olga, who's a breathwork facilitator, she told me about is, when if a dog or a cat or some kind of animal comes into a new space, they will start looking in all the corners and looking all around, and they sort of want to see everything and check everything and sniff everything, and then after that they'll kind of settle down. Well, we're kind of the same. um we we actually really, I just moved into this house, this tiny house. This is where I live now. I moved in here at the weekend, and it takes me a while to sort of really land when I arrive in a new place that's going to be my home and where I live. And one thing that really really helps me is to just really, I keep looking around. I'm looking around all the time in the different rooms that I have here, and even in all the corners, so that I really familiarize myself with the place. And if your brave thing relates to, especially doing something in a new place, then it can be a really good idea to arrive there a bit early and like just go around, look all around at the space, really get familiar with the space. And if you have a choice of spaces, I'm talking about if you hold workshops, or you want to give a presentation, or you want to give a concert, you can really help yourself out with a feeling of safety that just helps you be more, you know, brave and shiny in actually doing your thing, whatever your thing is. If you choose a space that you've already been in before, or that you know quite well, having that familiarity in your surroundings and your space helps a lot. I notice a huge difference if I play a concert in a space that I know very well versus a space that I don't know at all. Um, or if if it's a new space but there's a lot of people I know, that also really helps. Um, but yeah, going back to the more, I feel like I'm branching away a little bit now from what I want to say about the really physical side of things. How just, breathing long and slow in a way that just slows down your heartbeat makes a huge, huge difference. And we don't always, I'm still a little bit scratching the surface, right? You might be like, oh, duh, I know this. But how many people really, I've worked with clients who spend a lot of time on stages. They don't usually take that time to just regulate their nervous system before they go out there. But when you do that, it makes a huge difference. My main tool for this in the Amplify program, I do work a little bit with the breath, but I mostly work with the voice. What I mostly say about myself and what I do is that I'm a vocal artist and a vocal empowerment coach. And I work with voice activation. And the part of that that relates to what we're talking about now is, like, I don't know if I actually, it's become such a habit to do this that I don't always notice, but I very often put a hand on my chest, because I've learned to really use my chest when I use my voice. When we sometimes, if we're nervous, especially when we get a little bit tight, the voice can get a little bit stuck up here. Whereas when we're relaxed is when our voice is able to more drop down, and it's very, very grounding and relaxing for our nervous system to have the voice down here in the chest. The beauty of that is that when you learn the techniques of really resonating your voice in your chest and in other spaces in your body, you're asking. You get so used to doing that, but you need to be relaxed to do it. So just deciding to bring your voice into your chest, and over time it just becomes a habit of having your voice here. You're relaxing yourself at the same time. And the vibrations that your voice makes are, for me, the most effective thing to tune into exactly in those moments when something is scary. And a lot of the time in those scary moments, at least for me, is when I'm using my voice. Presentations, new big workshops, especially with groups that I don't know before, singing on the stage, rapping, having a vulnerable conversation with someone that I love and I'm really not sure how they're going to take it. We can teach ourselves to connect and tune into our voice in a way that it's a kind of anchor and support for us, even in the moments when using it is scary. It's a beautiful, beautiful tool for giving ourselves inner safety, like in the scariest moments, and then actually going over that ledge and being able to say the thing, do the thing. It's really beautiful. And that's like a big part of what I'm teaching in the Amplify program, especially in month 1. So yeah, you can create inner safety for yourself on a very physical level by regulating your nervous system. And you might have your own ways also to do that. And then it's just really good to remember to really do them as a regular practice, but then also like especially in those moments when you know it's time to be brave. And another aspect of that safety that's the foundation of courage and the foundation of being free and how you can express yourself and effortless and how you can take your space is trust in yourself and trust in the environment. Trust in yourself is the one that you have full control over. You can always restore and reactivate trust in yourself. You can't always have trust in the environment. You can help create it for yourself. That goes a little bit back to what I was saying about doing your thing in familiar spaces or making sure you have your people with you. But sometimes the outside world is not safe. Let's be real about that. There's always a risk that we're going to fuck up or that someone isn't going to like us or that someone is going to have a bad reaction to something that we say. You know, the list goes on, but you can always choose to trust yourself. So that's what I'm going to talk about first. I break this down into 2 things. The first one is self-belief. Self-belief is trust in your capabilities, in your ability to do the things that you want to do. Not necessarily now. There's things that I want to do that I am not capable of doing right now. But self-belief is about knowing that if I take this next step and the next step and the next step, I will get there. I can learn things. To be okay if you fail and not let failure let you get into a spiral where you kind of freeze and go into procrastination and stop daring to try. And feeling that you have the power to choose and make changes in your life. That it's not a given. If you're someone who, like me, I used to find it really hard to say no to anybody. And that put me kind of at the mercy of other people. Kind of just felt like I was trapped in other people's expectations. I didn't feel like I had the power to choose and make changes in my life. First, it was to do with more career stuff. But that was actually a bit easier for me. Like early on, I was able to say, hey, I actually don't want to do that. The hardest part for me was about, you know, just those little moments where someone wants me to do something that I don't want to do. And I kind of give away too much of my power by not feeling like I can say no to it. I know someone who's in her 50s. She almost moved out of her house because someone was telling her that she had to and being really, really pushy with it. So, yeah, self belief is about like trust in your abilities, let's say. Your ability, like your actual skill set and capabilities to do stuff, but then also your ability to like choose for yourself and advocate for yourself. And it's related to self worth, but it's different. Your self worth is your inner world view of yourself, the belief that you're innately good despite your flaws and failures. And it's not, it's exactly that, despite your flaws and failures. It's not about ignoring and sort of like just turning away from the stuff that's wrong with us, the stuff that actually we know is not that great about us and we would like to change. Being able to see those and not turn away from themselves from them, and still at the same time accept ourselves and feel that we're innately good, feeling you're worthy of good things happening to you. It's a different, it's like a different quality of trust in yourself. You feel that? Self-belief, self-worth, they're related, but they kind of work together. So I have a chart. I made a chart. I'm just going to move myself over here a little bit so you can see it properly. When both self-belief and self-worth are high, this is when we have a kind of like we really trust ourselves. If you believe in your capabilities and you believe that you're innately good despite your flaws and you're worthy of good things happening to you, you know, a lot of those blocks of like the reasons, we're going to talk a bit more about them, the reasons why we hold ourselves back from being brave, being in our courageous honesty and taking more space and like letting ourselves shine, they kind of fall away. And that's going to make more sense, I think, as I talk about the other ones. Like, what happens if your self belief is high, but your self worth is low? Then you get into what I've decided to call never good enough mode. You believe in your capabilities, you know you're good at stuff, but you don't believe in your innate goodness and that you're worthy of things. And so you kind of feel like you have to keep striving and striving and striving in order to prove that worth. But it's never going to be enough. Then you're in never good enough mode. And that's been my like prime mode. I really need to check myself in that. There can be days where I'm just like I'm in turbo mode, and I do need to just check in and notice, am I in that mode because I'm just really inspired and I'm really in my like juicy creativity and I'm feeling really alive, or is there some aspect of like proving myself? Because if there's too much of like trying to prove myself or like get validation for what I'm doing, then it's time to actually stop the doing, do some stuff to activate my self-worth. To just balance myself out again. If self-worth is high, but our belief in ourselves, our self-belief and in our like capabilities and stuff is low, we can get into take it easy mode. We feel like we can't really do it. And so we'd better just take care of ourselves and not do too much. And just, this can be really important to not do too much and take care of ourselves, especially if we're in not never good enough mode. You see that, but it can go over the other way. When actually, if you really owned that you can do it, you would do it and you wouldn't feel the need to be kind of overprotective of yourself. And then we can get into take it easy mode. And if they're both low, then we're kind of stuck. We're just kind of stuck. And that's also something that can happen. Get into procrastination or freeze, or, kind of not being able to move forward much at all. Sorry for that little blulup. I don't know why it happens. It clearly need to learn some tech stuff. But the good news is that self-belief and self-worth are not just things that you either have or you don't have. It's a practice. And a huge part of what we do, especially in month 2, I mean, we're doing all of this stuff all the time, actually, through the program. It's just that we have different focuses at different times. But a huge part of month 2 is really learning how to boost both your self-belief and your self-worth, so that you believe in your own capabilities and your power to choose and advocate for yourself, and you believe in your innate goodness and worthiness. So many of the blocks to really showing up and being brave, taking space and expressing ourselves freely fall away already at that stage when we're doing that. So then I can talk a little bit, though, about trust in the environment. As I say, it's not always in our control, but a lot of the time when we don't trust our environment, it's not always because our environment is not trustworthy. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you worry about stuff and then the stuff never happens? We can create perceptions of lack of safety in our environment that aren't actually there. And again, it comes back to discernment. And again, it comes back to trusting in ourselves. The more we have that inner safety, the more we can discern that. But I really I use this from the very beginning of the Amplify program, and actually even the Joyful Jammers program, where we're more focused on learning music over 15 weeks, piano, guitar, percussion. So it seems less kind of mindset and inner work, personal development focused, but actually we're doing stuff that you need to be brave for, like writing songs and performing on stages. And so we end up using this model as well. And it's the idea that if we want learning and transformation to occur, we need to come outside of our comfort zone into our stretch zone. We need to stretch. We need to get uncomfortable. But if we go too far outside of our stretch zone, we get into the panic zone. And that's when the nervous system is too activated for any learning or transformation to occur anyway. You can think of it as, like really shallow breathing, racing heart, sweating palms. It's fine that it happens. It's fine that it happens, but we don't need to go there. We can teach ourselves to sort of stay in a level that feels manageable, but stretchy. That's our stretch zone. The beautiful thing is, the more time we spend in our stretch zone, the more comfortable we feel in discomfort. Just spending time in your stretch zone. You see how it's related to courage. I don't need to say it. Spending time in your stretch zone makes you feel more comfortable spending time in your stretch zone. And it's, again, a familiarity thing. Oh, I know this feeling of stretch. I've got this. Again, you see how it comes back to trusting yourself, but it's also related to trusting the environment, what you do out in the world. The more time you spend doing something that's in your stretch zone, that thing will fall into your comfort zone. You're expanding your comfort zone. And things that were in your panic zone will become part of your stretch zone. And you can do that for yourself. You can check in with yourself and just understand what is the right level of stretch for me. Or you can get support from a friend, or you can hire somebody to be your coach who's going to really support you through that. So that the things that you want to do, when you have the support for them, it's very likely that they're less panic zoney and they're more stretch zoney. And you feel more inner safety. That this whole piece about safety is giving us the tools to regulate ourselves so that we can spend time in the stretch zone and feel actually good about it. It can be fun. That's also a big part. That's also a big part of what I really like to show people in Amplify, that it can actually be fun. It can be really playful and fun to do stuff. We're moving on from the topic, from this key concept of the foundation of freedom is safety. And I found this text from Amber that I thought was really related. She took the Amplify program. I think she ended already about a year ago. And she said, if you long to feel safe in your expressions, voicing your true thoughts and feelings, and land in a deeper safety within your own body, this program is for you. I've never felt more safe and supported as I do in this Amplify container. Amber. Beautiful. How it's beautiful to watch her not just dare to be more courageous in her honesty in her relationships, but she also within the program really flourished as an artist, really, and in a really unique way that was really like, wow, you are really daring to, I'm getting goosebumps, you are really daring to like be uniquely you in how you're expressing yourself artistically. Yeah, and also just like in showing, really showing who she is both inside and outside the Amplify sessions. It was so beautiful, so beautiful to watch. Everybody has like their own journey through Amplify, and everyone is different, and um everyone is also beautiful in its own way, but everyone is different. That's what I really love about that. Anyway, key concept number 2 is, and I really don't want you to feel like I'm treating you like a dum-dum when I say this. It might sound like it in the beginning, but we're going to go into it. But to speak and live your truth, you need to know what it is. This, like, I didn't even know actually whether to put number 1 first or number 2 first, because like we're working with this a lot in both month 1 and month 2 of Amplify as well. It sounds so obvious, but like everyone that I've ever worked with who has a thing around, it's not always easy to really really say what we mean and what we feel, and be really courageous and radically honest and really take our space. It's a universal thing that people are not actually fully connected with. What is your truth? What is your truth? What do I actually want? How do I feel about this? What do I think about this? What do I like? I I used to if I was with somebody and I was going to put on some music, I would just try and figure out, I would put on music that I thought that that person might like, or like music that they've played to me before, or music that I think might like make the person think that I'm cool. Or something like that. And there's nothing wrong, actually. Of course, there's nothing wrong with putting on music that you think the other person will like. But I actually wasn't able to own the music that I like for a while in front of other people. And I didn't even really know what it was actually for a long time. How do I feel? Do you ever have the sense that, you know, it can be hard to actually notice what you feel about things when you're in the interaction with the person. A very common thing is not to notice until a while after an interaction that something actually didn't feel good or something didn't sit right. And that can be a very, very common thing, that you will like have the interaction, play along with it, and then later might realize, wait, I didn't like that. I didn't like it. And it might be a long time later, it might be a short time later. You might kind of notice in the moment that you feel like something's up, but you might not quite be able to trust back to trust again. You see how they're all, it's very hard to separate these things out because they're all interconnected, but it might be hard to trust that you really are right in that. And so you need to talk to some different friends and get validation from them that, yeah, that wasn't a cool thing that that person did, or that wasn't quite right. And then you feel like you have the permission to be upset about it or not to feel quite right about it. Not everybody might have all of these things, but I've definitely experienced all of these things, and a lot of my clients do. What do I want? Do you ever find like you're in a you're hanging out with a friend and they're like, what do you want to do? And you're like, I don't mind what we do. What do you want to do? And it can be really hard in those moments to actually figure out, what do I want to do? Because I don't want to choose something that makes the other person end up doing something that they don't want to do. And so this connection to who we really are can a little bit break down. And I like to talk about our antenna. We have sort of like inner antenna, and it's really beautiful to think about other people and care about other people. We're community beings. We need to live together. We can't just be selfish douches who only care about ourselves. But so many of us have been raised, and I'm just going to move, like I can feel myself a bit distracted by the light. So many of us have been raised in a way that we've like pointed our antennas totally at the other one, and we lose that connection to ourselves, especially like when we're in relationship to one or several people. And so you see that there's a sort of like, there's a presence, there's a level of presence and connected to ourselves that's also foundational to courage. Because courage is about living in a way that feels true and aligned to us. And we need a connectedness to ourselves to even be able to start to do that. We need to know ourselves very deeply. And there's different ways to do that. I encourage all of my clients to keep a journal. I allow myself to not be perfect in my journaling, but between like 1 and 7 days out of the week, I'm journaling. And if I lose that, then I do feel like I lose some safety. Because again, we're back to safety and trust. It's like, it's so interconnected. But when I have that familiarity with myself, I know who I am. I know what I think about things. It's such an anchor to fall back on when I'm sort of like in the arena of life and expressing myself in real time. That connection to myself and standing behind it. It takes a presence. It means that we can't sort of like avoid difficult feelings very often. Of course, there are times when we can't just have a huge emotional experience, but like pushing away our emotions, especially the difficult ones, is a primary way to get out of contact with ourselves. And our emotional landscape, the more we can connect to it, that is like our biggest map, really, of like knowing when something doesn't feel good in the moment. And of course, you can see how that's a foundation, right, of actually being brave and expressing. what that is. Um, yeah, and I often say speak your truth. I refer to the concept of speak your truth, or like be true to yourself. I think that we all have so many sides to ourselves. Like, it's not about finding your authentic voice, it's about finding your, like, exploring this huge infinite range of what it is to be you, exploring yourself, getting familiar with that. The voice, especially for people, I've had some amazing breakthroughs with people who didn't have any connection to their emotions, and we've reestablished their connection to their emotions and how they actually feel through their voice, because every emotion has a voice, right? In someone who has an expressive voice, that's a lot what we're actually working with and amplify. With someone who has an expressive voice, we can hear if they're sad, we can hear if they're angry, we can feel if something's up. We really like, oh, there's such a rawness of emotion that can be expressed on the voice, and that's a very beautiful tool to give us access to our emotions, and also for exploring all of these different infinite sides of ourselves. All of these different sides of ourselves have a voice. So when you work with your voice, I mean, of course, you're working with your creativity, and you're improving. I hate that word, but I'll just use it for now because it's what's on my tongue. Improving your singing voice, but it's so deep, the voice. We've already seen, like, it can help you regulate your nervous system, feel more calm in yourself. We can work on our voice so that we don't just, when we work on a confident voice in a deep way, like I work with, we're not just making ourselves sound more confident, we're teaching ourselves to feel more confident, and our voice is a huge part of that. You know, if I go on a stage to speak and I sound nervous, I'm probably going to get more nervous because I've experiencing myself sounding nervous. If I know what to do with my voice so that I sound confident, I will start to feel more confident. It's the same concept as, you know, like holding this power pose, but with the voice. I'm not talking much about creativity through this. So I think that's worth, especially at this stage of like knowing yourself. I encourage all of my clients to journal, but I also encourage all of my clients, no matter what program you're in, everybody's writing songs, raps, poems. And if you hear that and you think, oh, I better not join those programs then because I can't do it, don't let your inner critic say that, because I've never found anybody who can't do it. I've never found anybody who can't do it. And it's a beautiful way to get to know yourself. Yeah, like creative writing is a beautiful way to get to know yourself. And it's also a beautiful way to access your like expression in a way that we're going to see. So knowing yourself, it's maybe you already know this and you already have tools and practices around this, and this can just be a reminder to you to make that regular practice out of really connecting to yourself. Because when I know my values and my beliefs, and I'm connected to my emotions, kind of gives me that ability to, it's another aspect of safety, right? To know and trust in the way that I can respond in real time and show up in real time. I guess I'm a little bit more in the vein of like intimacy and courageous honesty in our relationships and daring to say what we really mean. But it's also connected to reaching for your big wild dreams, whatever they are, the things that you really want to do and bring into the world. You need to know what they are. And it's not a given that we just know what we really want. We need a presence and a connection to ourselves to stay in touch with that. And we need a level of self-belief and self-worth to sort of like, if we think that we can't do stuff and we don't deserve stuff, it can really block us off from being in contact with our dreams and what we really want. So spending that time knowing ourselves is huge foundation of safety. And this is a little bit related as well, like, right? Like, here's me. And here are my needs, wants, dreams, likes and dislikes, ideas, fears. And here, this is what we talk about actually when we talk about expressing our boundaries. This is the boundary. It's this invisible line that encapsulates all of those things that make me me. And my ability to know that and advocate for it is a huge part of my courage and my ability to feel safe in the world. Like, I've got myself. I've got myself. I don't think I have a slide for that because I wasn't going to talk about it, but this is another important thing of like really teaching ourselves deeply from the inside out, then also that this is just as important as anybody else's this. I don't need to keep squashing myself to fit around what other people need and other people want and other people's dreams. A true, mature, empowered interaction is when I stand strong in my this and you stand strong in my this. And then I wish I had a slide for it, but like those Venn diagrams where then they overlap. There's that shaded bit in the middle where they overlap. And that is where I can play and dance with that person. It's going to be different for every person. And it's okay that they don't. And it's very unlikely that they'll ever just fully overlap like that. And that can be okay. And daring to let that be okay is also a big part of courage. And just remembering that. In Amplify, we sort of like, we really teach you for that to be second nature. You can also just remember that. It's like, it helps. It really helps a lot. Yeah, and I said this already, I kind of got ahead of myself. But so when we know that we can express that, when we know it and feel it, and we know that we can express it, it again comes back to safety and trust. Trusting myself to be there for myself, have my own back, and support myself in the world. We're going to come to that in a moment. I think we have Naomi. Yeah, we have Naomi. Naomi said, I'm always thinking about the course and applying the things I'm learning in totally unexpected ways in my life. I've had some real breakthroughs, and absolutely every week I have an aha moment where something comes together in my understanding that I know will serve me and those around me for the rest of my life. The reason I put Naomi here is that I especially love what she did. Is she was really in her creativity and her self-exploration. She really used the program to find all kinds of different sides of herself and flavors of herself. And I really saw her kind of like starting to see her life as this beautiful playground where she got to experiment and try stuff and dare to break old habits of how she showed up in the world and just try something new, which was beautiful. Yeah, and so key concept number 3, and it's where we're really focusing, especially in month 3 and month 4 of Amplify, by the way, is then opening the channel of expression. Knowing how to, so just backtracking, knowing how to feel safe. We can create that for ourselves. trusting ourselves, knowing ourselves, and then opening the channel of expression so that we feel more and more comfortable and effortless expressing it. We are working with this from the beginning. That's why, like, there's no linear path for this. Everything's interrelated. And people are having huge breakthroughs in amplifying how they how they take space and how they express themselves from the start. But when we get into month 3, it's really becoming the focus because we've laid these beautiful foundations where, you know, we feel safe, we feel this deep connection with ourselves. We're so much more ready to really lean into expression in a way that doesn't need to be as scary as it was when you started the program. And you can end up expressing things and creating things and saying things and like showing up in ways that you never thought, because you just didn't learn yet how to actually make it fun and feel good for yourself to do it. Like some of these things, like I can remember, it's not just my clients, I can remember when there were these moments of like I'm really knowing that I wanted to speak up and disagree with somebody, or like actually tell somebody, actually it wasn't okay with me that you said that, and just feeling that it was totally stuck, and just feeling like it's always going to be like that. That's just something that I can't do. It's too scary. It's too freaking scary, and I'm never going to do it. Yeah, it's scary. I think it's one of the scariest things, those like, especially those intimate moments. But also like getting up onto a stage and doing your thing, like you're ready for that also at this stage when you've created that inner safety for yourself and you really have that familiarity with yourself. Again, like I've said it before, but there's so much wasted talent. I actually will say that and stand behind it. Like I think it's a beautiful thing that people do their thing all alone and enjoy it and love it for themselves. But I think that it's a human thing to want to be seen and want to be known fully and want to feel fully expressed in this lifetime, whether it's as a person or in our creativity, because everybody also has their creative outlet, whatever it is. And it's such a shame when we don't give that to ourselves because we're holding back from being seen, being heard, being known. So, how do we open the channels of expression? Part of it is about like actually freeing some blocks that can come to self-expression. I sort of work with these parallel to the stuff that I've been saying about knowing yourself and like working to boost your self-belief and your self-worth. That's actually the time in Amplify a little bit earlier on, when we're looking at like where does our self-doubt come from and how can we alchemize that into something nurturing for ourselves and inspiring and powerful. What are the times when our inner critic flares up and tells us that we're not good enough or that we're doing wrong or that, you know, we should hide? Or fear of being wrong or fear of being too much. I have some beautiful tools for how to transform those, and they use especially voice activation and creative writing, but also some other tools as well. My main tools that I use personally are voice activation and creativity activation. But there's all sorts of ways for working with these things, and you might find your own as well. And we can activate the output mode. And that's a beautiful thing. Everybody in all of my programs writes multiple songs, and that's so fun and so rewarding, whether you've done it before or not. It's such a rewarding thing. And even just like improvising we do a lot of practicing with me of just, and it can be in ways that seem really silly and quite playful, and you feel like you're just having fun. But what you're actually doing is becoming natural, becoming very familiar with expressing yourself spontaneously in real time, in the moment. And again, everybody can do this. Some of the things that I say, like songwriting and improvisation and like being silly, they can really freak people out and seem like, I am bringing you into your stretch zone in my work pro- in a faster way than you would on your own, because it's always like that when we work in a supportive container with somebody. But it's really fun. And so much of this, especially when we've done that groundwork before, is about just activating the output mode in all of these different fun ways. Fun, and also sometimes, sometimes we go there to deep places. Sometimes you really do go into the rawness of your emotions and actually going there in your expression of that rawness. In a way that can feel like, whoa, that's pretty scary. But honestly, it's not as scary as you feel like it's going to be. And when you can like go there in like really expressing your emotions in a raw way, you are training yourself to feel and express your emotions in the moment. And you apply that to everything, the like how you can speak up for yourself in your relationships, how much you can really dare to express a song that you sing. I remember when I used to just get up on the stage, somehow muddle through my song. So it was like almost like I was flying somewhere outside, out of my body, and then finish. And then I would go off the stage, or with a talk or a presentation. It would be hard to even remember what I did or what I said, how it went, because I just wasn't there. And that's a very different thing from, being there, being grounded on the stage, leaning into connection with the audience, feeling my song or feeling the words I'm saying in my talk and owning them and expressing them. That's when we're really magnetic. That's when we really engage and inspire, and you know that's like the next level. I think it's not only even about daring, or it's not like when we dare in that way, it's not about only doing the thing. It's not only about just being there. It's about being there and showing up with the fullness of ourselves, feeling what it's like to be us in that moment without turning away from that, and owning it. That is when we are really at our best as humans, in my opinion. And it's a practice. It's a journey to get there, and it's a beautiful one. And that feeling of that, okay, sometimes I'm freaking nervous and scared, but I am the path ahead for me is clear, to keep taking the next step and the next step and the next step, and reaching towards the dreams and the things that I know I want from life and from the world. Feeling that like actually the people that love me for who I am, because I'm actually being who I am and saying what I think and feel. Just this feeling of being fully expressed. It's a beautiful gift to give ourselves. And it's something that we can learn. And as I'm sure there's other ways to learn it. And like the way that I do it is just the way that I found, that I just love and think is so beautiful, so rewarding, and so fun. And it's with this special focus on the voice, how it relates to our body and our different sides of ourselves and our full emotional spectrum and our creativity. Our voice is a very creative tool. And then also the words that we use and the things that we can write. Like there's for example, just writing a really powerful rap. Writing a rap from a place of like owning your power is a beautiful act to do. For example, you can try that for yourself. Because then when you need to like express that rap and really own it, you feel how powerful you feel when you can really step in and own it. I do that a lot with my clients and it's beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, is that my last slide? I guess it is. I guess it is. So I'm going to see if there's any questions. What was the culture or nation that you mentioned in the beginning that you feel has embedded capitalism nicely in their system? Yeah, this is not only, I mean, when I did my master's, I was focusing on the Aymara people in Bolivia. I'm going to write how you spell it. I mean, sometimes you spell it like this, or the Spanish spelling is like this. There's an interesting thing, especially about the Aymara, because they really, I mean, their economic system is really capitalistic. And they really value making money and growing business. But they also, in many cases, stay really strong in their traditional values of helping each other out and being generous. And I think that like it's really inspiring. Of course, I don't want to over romanticize anybody or anything, but I found really beautiful things in how they do business that inspire the way I also want to do business. Thanks for the question, Vissa. Does anybody else have any questions? Or any more questions? If you feel like sharing in the chat, I wonder like what is your biggest takeaway from this? What will you most carry with you? Like what do you feel inspired to implement in your life? No pressure to answer, but I'm just pausing for a bit to give time in case you feel for doing that. And in the meantime, whether you're here live or you're here watching the replay, thanks so much for being here. This is an interesting question. Does earning money fill something for you? To me, it is a struggle that I need to pay rent or food, but also go new ways to build up new things. I guess I've wondered sometimes that would I prefer if there was no money and we didn't have that way of doing things? When I was in Peru in the jungle, I spent maybe 6 months at least kind of working on a conservation project in exchange for accommodation and food. So I barely thought about money or touched money. I was just living in the jungle. And there was something so freeing and rewarding about that. Just like having that totally different kind of life, really connected to nature and really carefree in a way. I've definitely been demoralized before by feeling like there was a point where I felt like there was nothing for me to do in this world. There was nothing for me. And um, like, yeah, I don't know, nothing fitted me. But it's very, very, I think so, so exactly, yeah. I mean, that's the way that earning money does fill something for me. When I do things in this way, where I found a way to really do things that I love and make music and work with people playing music and being creative and stepping into our power and watching people grow and thrive and flourish. Like, then I get to enjoy every moment each day in my life, pretty much. I mean, there's some stuff like bookkeeping that I really don't like, but for the most part, it like I really have shaped a way to make money that involves me being in thrive and doing what I love. And like my reality is, yeah, that I do need money to pay my rent and food, exactly like you say, Heidi. And the empowering part for me is that, like, within that reality, I want to dare to do it in a way that is like aligned with me, even though that's definitely not the easy route. In a way, when I was working corporate, I just started to feel like 8 hours of my day is so much. And there's some people who love their employment and like they just really love their job, and that's so beautiful. I never found that. And so for me, the beautiful thing, and I'll never go back now, was to just design my own way of doing it. How are the working methods, Vesa is asking, in your activation course? Are there things like group online conversations in addition to lecture materials and exercises? Great question. Um, Yeah, it's pretty much everything you said. There's an online portal where you're following through um kind of on your own outside of there's weekly sessions on Zoom. And so you're working in the online portal between those. And that's honestly, that's where I'm giving you most of the tools and practices so that you can follow along with the videos at home and you have lifetime access to that, so you always have it. Like I say, a lot of these things like cultivating our self-belief and self-worth and keeping our expression open, it's a lot of just like a practice. And there's I support you. By the time you've left the program, you really have your sense of like what's your toolkit that's going to keep on supporting you in that beyond. So that's one aspect, the online portal. And then we have weekly lives, and they cycle around in the themes of them um, over like 4 weeks. So the first week is a workshop session um, where, yeah, it's like a voice activation workshop where I'm going through some tools with you and kind of facilitating live um, tools that are especially going to help you with what our focus is in each module, which I can tell you in a minute. The second live is like sharing and inquiry, where we're more, sharing with each other in the group and diving deep into different questions related to how we express ourselves and take space. And that's also a chance to like use the group to actually practice expressing ourselves. That's why I love a group format for this program. The third one is actually an open stage where you bring some kind of like performance whether it's something with creativity or a talk, but just a way to practice being in the spotlight. And then the fourth session is a sound journey where you use your voice, but we kind of use the concept of sound and going into an altered state of consciousness to help make new neural pathways that do this sort of beneath the surface work in changing how you feel about yourself and how you express yourself. So those are how the lives work. And then month one, our focus is on more like how to use your voice, like voice techniques for having a more confident voice, but also being able to calm yourself with your voice, connect to yourself more deeply. So several of the things we've talked about today. The second one is about stepping into your power, boosting your self-belief and your self-worth, and really owning your greatness and your worthiness. And month three is about activating your expressiveness, getting more in touch with your emotions, exploring different sides of yourself. We've talked about that, of course, also. And then month four is all about like you've already been bringing that into the real world before, but that's where our focus really goes in month four. Like, what are the things that are unsaid in your life? What are the dreams that you're not quite reaching for? And making real progress and changing those things while you have the support of me as your coach and also your other buddies inside the program. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And if anyone wants to talk more about that to me, you can. I'll also make sure that you get sent a link to look more about it on my website. That's an online thing. So I've had people from all over the world in that Amplify program. And we start on the 2nd of September. All right, we're at time. So I'm gonna love you and leave you. Thank you so much to you who joined live. Thank you for watching, future people in the replay. Yes, so great. Great to have you here. And yeah, I guess you'll get an email however you've signed up, you'll get an email from me after this at some point, with like an open channel to. I always welcome your questions or your reflections. I love to read mails from people, so welcome to reach out. Much love. Bye bye everyone. Thank you. Bye.